Okay, hello everyone. I think we're live on Facebook. So today we are talking about the law of polarity, the universal Hermetic principle of the law of polarity, and how that affects our success and failure in creation. How it can be the key to success, and it can be the source of our resistance. So that's what I wanted to talk about today, because it has come up for me this week for sure. And even in a conversation I had this morning with a colleague who isn't feeling well. And so I wanted to talk about polarity, because when we are living in this 3D reality, it's a polarity universe. There's two sides to every coin. There's two sides to every story, every argument, every perspective. And this is where we move into the place of no judgment of good or bad, just different degrees. And that's what I wanted to talk about today, because in this world, we can be so polarized by a certain point of view, a certain structure, a certain way of being, that we actually don't realize we can transmute from that place. And this is where we step out into the superconscious, and then we become the observer of this polarizing point of view, or this polarizing situation, or this polarizing experience, that there are two sides. And if we're in an experience that is unwanted, which is in the polarity universe, we have, this is what I want, this is what I don't want. And how we choose to put our focus at that point is going to set us up to what happens next. What are we creating in our life? Where does our focus? So it's in two parts. Like, one, okay, what is the situation at hand that you wish to be different? And then see it as two sides. There's two sides to everything. And this is something that definitely to be learned over the last couple of years, with so many polarizing points of view that things are absolute. And as metaphysicians and as creators, to know that part of the universal law is nothing is absolute. And I've just realized I haven't pressed record on this, but that's okay. That nothing is absolute. And this then allows space to move. If you are sick, if your belief is that it's absolute, there is nothing to be done, then you are missing the whole other side, that there is wellness. On the other side of sick, there's wellness. On the other side of fear, there's courage. On the other side of hate, there's love. On the other side of structure, there's no structure. There's chaos. On the other side of, I've written a few up here. So on the other side of hot, there's cold. So knowing that the law of polarity states, and I'm going to read I'll read the section from the Kybalion, which is a book that was written by what they call the three initiates. Some say it was, I'm not going to actually say the name because I can't remember off the top of my head, but the Initiates was a book written probably in the 1920s. And it talks specifically the study of the Hermetic philosophy of ancient Egypt and Greece. So it says to be the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus, which means thrice great. So some say that he was Thoth, the god of wisdom in ancient Egypt. And then there was the Hermes god in ancient Greece and ancient Rome. And so these are the teachings, the 7 universal principles, and the law of polarity is just one of them. And at the beginning of the law, and it's the fifth law, polarity is the 5th law. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same, Like and unlike are the same. So if you don't like something, you're just different degrees from liking it. And you know, when we change opinions, that things can change. So it's like opposites are identical in nature, but different in degrees. I just want you to sit with that for a minute. Opposites are identical in nature, but they differ in degrees. So they can differ in degrees and differ in frequency. That's how they'll be different from high to low, from hot to cold. So hot to cold is a good one to see that, you know, if something is cold, it can be hot. And if something is hot, it can then be cold. It doesn't let, unless you snap freeze something, but there's still different degrees. Like if something is hot, if it sits in the air, it will eventually get to warm. And then if it gets cold during the night, it'll get colder. So there's different degrees. It's never one or the other. And we can move along that line of polarity, wealthy and poor. If someone is wealthy, they are a higher degree up that subject. And if they're in lack, there is an opportunity to be wealthy because you're just further down. You're part of the same thing. What you cannot be, hate cannot be cold because they're different objects, they're different things. Fear cannot be dull. Fear cannot be sick because fear and sickness are different. But they can be the same frequency. And so this is why, for example, if we're talking about if you're fearful, which is a lower frequency, and we've talked about frequency before, like fear is a frequency of 70, I think it is. I could be wrong off the top of my head. I haven't looked at the consciousness scale for a little bit. So fear is a lower frequency. Now, along vibrating at that same frequency may be illness, like certain illnesses have a frequency and you can tap into that frequency. So if you move out of your fear into, let's say, courage, it probably will have a similar effect on your health because you've raised your frequency. So the frequency of that illness then is raised, so you're no longer a match. So things can be related by association with frequency, but they're not the same thing. So you can be, for example, love, and you can feel lack, because they're two different things. Love and hate are different to lack and abundance, or poor and wealthy. You can feel this is why, you know, you'll see this, they're not connected. Like when people talk about, you know, you see people in third world countries and they're really happy and they're living in these villages and they don't have any of the things that we have in the Western world. And you say, oh, well, they seem happy, but they're actually different things. The polarity of the things that they have and don't have are different. So lack and abundance and happiness and unhappiness are two different things. You can be unhappy and wealthy because they're two different things. They're not on the same scale. But you can't be unhappy and happy at the same time. But it is the same scale, the polarity. Now, how is this hitting home with everyone? I think this is really important when we're looking at creation, because where we have been taught the wrong focus. So we do know, if we separate focus, where we focus our attention, it expands. So for example, if you're focused on not feeling well and your resistance is, I don't want to feel this, you're not focusing on that I can be well. You're focusing on the space in between, that you're not well. But then maybe the next step is just focusing on feeling that little bit better. So you still can be both. Sick can be well, and it can be just different degrees. And you can use your frequency in other areas of your life to move degrees. For example, if you're unwell and it's triggering fear, and you're focusing on sickness as its fear, well, that will then create more of the same. But if you're unwell and you're focused on courage and you know, well, I can move through this. This is about expansion. So you're focused. So there's two different things at a different space. You can actually start moving your degrees to a center point. You can change, you can shift the state of different polarities, different poles, different objects, but you can use your belief in other things to move you along. You may be poor, but you have love and happiness. So you can use that to move you closer to an abundance mindset, even though they're two separate things. They're two separate things. And to understand how we transmute situations, it's understanding that how you feel about this situation, there is an opposite. Where we focus our attention expands that point of view. So this takes us away from judgment. This takes us away from that it has to be this way, or this is all there is. My life is unhappy. Relationships are terrible. You know, where there is an unhappy relationship, there is a real loving relationship. There's poles. Where there is structure, there is also no structure. Where there is support, there's also no support. But they are on the same scale. They're the same. So higher dimensional beings, the further we raise up the scale of consciousness, so let's say our frequency is in of love, then you maybe will see things differently from, let's say, if your frequency was in hate or fear. Or if you're in a state of courage, you will see things differently than if you're in fear. And they trigger different responses in the body. But when you're in a certain state, you can use polarity to work out, where do I need my focus to be? So for example, if you're in lack, focusing on what you don't have, focusing that there's not enough, as we know, creates more of the same. So how do we shift the degrees? You're not going to jump from there to there because there's a disconnect. So you move. That's why when we do the recodes, we go, what is the next right step? Because that'll move you along the degrees. That'll move you along the degrees. So these are the things that are the same. Courage and fear, same thing. Same object. Love and hate, it's an emotion. They're the opposites. Can you hate and love at the same time? No, but you can definitely have different versions of, feeling hate and love. And can hate turn into love, and can love turn into hate? Absolutely. Same thing. Hate can't turn into cold, though. Hot and cold, we've already been talking about that. Sharp and dull. So if something's sharp, cannot be courageous. Separate. So there's two parts here that we can use our frequency to move along the scale, but seeing each object, each experience, each state as two parts, each situation, each person. So this is where we become the observer of the situation. So higher states of consciousness allows us to be able to see the situation for what it is. And this is what the universal laws say. There are two parts to everything. So when I'm feeling lack, the opposite of that is wealth. I'm on the same thing, that line. So all I have to do is move by degrees. And what do I need? What's a frequency? Maybe there's, this is where we use our intuition. So what do I need to move along it? Focusing on lack that you don't have it will create more of the same. Focusing on creating abundance, focusing on what I need to do to create abundance. What do people that have abundance, what do they do? What are some of the practices I can do to shift my degree of frequency, my degree, so I'm a little bit more? What is the mindset practices I need to go? Will shift me along that degrees. It will move me up. When I'm feeling sick, what can I do to move out of feeling this sick and then feeling sad and sorry for myself? How do I move out of that? I can see it differently. So what's wellness? So I'm still part of that. I'm still part of that framework of health. And sometimes, seeing it like, oh, well, maybe my body is going through a change. And this could be a good thing. This could be change. Like my body, sometimes when we get a cold or a flu, it's your body getting rid of the junk, getting rid of things that the body doesn't need. Often that's what sickness is. The body's getting rid of things that we don't need. What can I do to put more in there? Sometimes it's rest. Maybe it's mindset, not resisting where we are. Not resisting where we are, observing where we are, but knowing we can move along that scale. Knowing there's two parts to everything, and where we choose to focus. So the whole point of a polarity universe, and this is from, the guidance from higher consciousness and, individuals that have transcended this polarity universe, is that we're here to say, this is what I want, this is what I don't want. And so you can use this to then focus on what I do want, not to just keep looking at what I don't want and hating where you're at, hating what you're doing. So this is how the polarity, polarizing, a polarizing point of view can be negative, can be. When I said in the pre-frame that polarity can be the key to your success and can be the source of your resistance. Observing an unwanted state should only be an observation, so then you can pivot and focus on what you do want. Observing a state or a situation that's happened to you in the past should only be an observation that I don't want that, I don't want to repeat that, so I'm focusing on what I do want and moving towards that. So this is how we use the universal laws. That's why we have them, because it's a guide. I suggest this book to anyone. It's an easy read. It's a small book, The Kabbalion. So positive and negative are two poles of the same thing with countless degrees in between. So it's like the oscillating, when we get a little bit ahead, oh, I'm still not there yet, but you're a little bit further than what you were. You're a little bit further than what you were. So you're no longer here. You're a little bit further. And the end result is here. So you're moving towards it, understanding there's two sides. But this is where oscillating happens, is we get a little bit ahead and then we start focusing, or something triggers us and we start focusing on what we don't want again, or focusing on a state that this is why I can't have what I have, or this is why I can't have what I'm trying to create. So polarity is there to show us what we don't want. So give us instruction on how to focus. It's clear. It just shows us what we don't want, so we can focus on what we do want. Without polarity, we never experience anything. You don't know love if you haven't experienced hate. You don't know pain if you haven't received pleasure. You can't appreciate pleasure. You appreciate pleasure so much more if you've experienced pain. You can appreciate wealth so much more if you've experienced poverty. And we don't have to be in extremes, but through the observation in this 3D reality, we can observe even two opposite ends of the poles and decide from the observation, this is what I want, this is what I don't want. You can observe a loving relationship. I want a loving relationship. That's what I'm going to focus on. Who are people in loving relationships? What do they create? So this is where polarity is one of the keys. So when we do the circles of, conscious mind, unconscious, superconscious, the bottom one is a polarity one, where it's two parts, dark and light, yin and yang. This is what I want. This is what I don't want. The key always is, how do I then focus on what I want? And this is the 2 points in time that I was talking about last week, A and B. This is where I'm at. This is where I want to be. Now, your polarity is that you're at the same thing. Now, when we get off and knowing that we're just different degrees from that end result, along the way, we will have resistance of why we can't have it. And we work on the resistance, keeping in mind that there's the opposite end of the scale that we're heading towards, if that's where you want to be. And sometimes we never want to be at both ends of the pole. Maybe we'll be happy being on just sort of on the opposite side of the middle, being wealthy, and then there's super wealthy billionaires being a certain level. There's different degrees of wealth, there's different degrees of happiness, there's different degrees of passion, different degrees of health and wellness. You have the super fit that are just amazing, like they're superhuman the way they are with their bodies. And some people are like, you know what, just want to feel good in my skin. Different degrees. And then there's someone that is debilitated. Different degrees. Opposite ends of the same pole. Know which pole you're focused on. Know that your happiness is not related to your wealth. Know that your relationships is not related to, but they can affect it because of frequency. If you're in a high frequency in one area of your life, you can actually use that. This is when we do the frequency readings. You can use that frequency to help you move along different degrees in other areas, other poles, using poles as that terminology. So how's that sitting with people? I think this is a really important lesson. It's a really important reminder of the universal laws and how we use them to create, and how we get so caught up in this, polarizing keeps people separated. Polarizing point of views that things are absolute. There's no absolute. There's different degrees of that opinion. There's different degrees of it, and how you choose to see it will be how you experience that state of being. And that's why people that are very absolute and polarizing on certain topics can keep them stuck. And that's why sometimes we need to loosen that to be able to see that there is an opposite side. If people are polarized by their state of being an unwanted state, that can be a negative. But people that are polarized on the state they want to be and totally focused on maintaining that state, that can be a positive. That can be empowering. So this is like, for example, someone that has OCD. They have an ability to focus their attention on something. Their superpower is their ability to focus. What they choose to focus on, they'll create more of. So if they choose to focus on their inability to function in the world, if they choose to focus on that this has to be a certain way, that can be used for them or against them. And I'm not saying that OCD is not a debilitating state for some, and it really is, can be for sure. But every state that we have has an opposite. And if something that you have is, if you have OCD and you are focused on that there's something wrong with me, there's also the other side that I have this ability to focus so intently that I can create. That's why some people with OCD are super successful, because they've actually pivoted their ability to use their focus on creation, not focus on the things that, don't matter, or the things that, create more pain in their life, because other people, that it has to be a certain way. And as humans, we are multidimensional. We have so many parts. And yes, everything has opposite poles, but understand there's many layers. And all those aspects can affect where we are on the different poles, but we have the ability to shift our focus. We have the ability to move in degrees, and we can shift quite easily a little way up. We may not go from one end to the next, it can be too much, it can be overwhelming, but we can move a little bit ahead. I'm a little bit further, I'm a little bit closer than I was yesterday. As good as things keep getting better, the better they get, the better they get. That's a better saying than the better they get. You've got to be careful that you might go back. So that's when you oscillate. The better they get, the better they get. So you can keep moving along the degrees until you end up where you want to be. And knowing two sides to every story. Two sides, everything has an opposite, good or bad, good or evil. And where you choose to focus, if you look at the darkness, if you look at evil, and there is evil, if you look at evil long enough, that will be all consuming, and that will be what you see. Where there's evil, there is good, and we can focus our attention on creating something good. Where there is restriction, where there is lack of opportunity, there is opportunity in that same situation. And it's just being able to be from the perspective of the observer so you can see it. So that's what I wanted to talk about today, the law of polarity. It will be the key to your success, or it will be the source of your resistance. So let's get on to the recode. If anyone has any questions, I'll just check on Facebook to see if anyone has any questions there. Frozen screen. Oh, hopefully it is unfrozen, which is not good. I think hopefully that's unfrozen now. I think it has. Fixed. Good, good. Okay, nice to see you, Margie. If you have any questions, just put them in the chat before I get started on the recode. Otherwise, we'll get started. All good, even though I came in a bit late. Oh, because of the time change. Yes, Mara, I know. Like, well, that's okay. The recording is here. It'll be on the inner circle. So I think the key to, or the main message of today about polarity is that there's two sides. If you are in an unwanted state, there is an opposite to that state. And your only space between is different degrees. And you can move along it. It's not beyond you. So one, it's the key to possibilities. You're just moving along it. If you're at one end, you can be at the other. Absolutely. If you're hot, you can get cold. If you're cold, you can get warm, you can get hot. And it's just a matter of the actions you need to take to get there. If you're cold, you know you put a jumper on and you know you do things like that. So there's actions to take. So let's get started. I want you to think of, we'll get started with the recode. Think of something, think of a state of being. Maybe today, think of a state that feels unwanted. Think of a state that feels unwanted. And the state you want to feel maybe feels a bit beyond you. But the wanted state and the unwanted state, that's what we'll work on today. The unwanted state and the state you want to be. If there is a specific experience that you want, or if there's a specific thing in your true choices you want to work on, you can work on them. But otherwise, it can be a feeling of, you know, is there a feeling of unease and you want to feel ease? Is there a feeling of fear and you want to feel courage? Is there a feeling of resentment and you want to feel peace? You know, what is a situation where you want to move along that pole? You don't want to be in that lower frequency. So I want you to think of it. I want you to think of it. And I'll just... Okay, good. I want you to think of that one thing you want to move out of. There's a state you're in now and you want to move out of it. So we're looking at the polarity states and we're going to do a recode on that. And it could be the belief, feeling like I don't have enough. So what's the opposite of that? I have more than enough. I don't feel like I belong. Connection, belonging is the opposite of that. I feel like I'm not capable. So competency is the opposite of that. Feeling capable, feeling competent. So think about something that you want to work on, what state you want to change. And I want you now to go into that desired state that you want to feel. Maybe it's in a certain situation, in a certain environment. This is how we shift, transmute. Because when they're on the same poles, we can transmute it. So think of something along they're the same thing. Where you are now, where you want to be, but of the same thing. Okay. And I want you to think of that desired state and just close your eyes and just go into that desired state. And I'm thinking of more than enough. From not enough to having overflow, more than enough. What does that feel like? And you may be thinking of your own thing. More than enough. What's that desired state that you want? I want you to just feel into it. How do you feel when you're in that desired state? What does it feel like? Does it feel like relief? Does it feel like joy, happiness, complete, whole? What does it feel like? Now, I want you now, if you've got a pen and paper, I want you to write down what is the desired state? What does it feel like when you're there? And draw a circle around it. That's our end point. That's where you're moving to. That's your desired state. That is the opposite end of the pole. And maybe you're already along the degrees of there anyway. And now I want you to come back to the current state where you are and to observe where you are along that. And usually we give you a thing to say 1 to 10, 10 being absolutely I'm already there, 0 being I'm so far away, opposite ends of the pole. So where are you fit So maybe you're already started to move along you've already started the degrees along that pole. What's your number? Mine feels like it's about a 5. It's about and just put in whatever number it is. Just check Facebook. Okay. An unwanted surgery. So the surgery is the action, the feeling. Yeah, okay. So I want you now just to go into where you are now, feeling the unwantedness, feeling the not enough, feeling the lack of choice. So what's the pole that is on? Is it wellness to sickness? Is it pain to feeling comfortable? Pain to pleasure? Is it fear to courage? What is the unwanted state? Because when we're in fear, we can't actually make decisions. We can't make formed decisions. So maybe the first step of a situation is moving out of fear, if fear is the emotion, to moving into courage, so you can make a decision. That could be a decision to handle the surgery, or it could be a decision to handle doing an alternative treatment. The courage. Fear will keep you stuck to make a decision about that topic. So it's a complex one, that one. So I want you to go into the state you feel. What is the difference? And I want you to see that there's two sides to the story. And we may have experiences that will have different poles. But as soon as we shift the main one, if we shift out of fear into courage, and then we can see a situation differently, then we can move along the poles to the other thing. That's how life works. So I want you to see the 2 points in time, the 2 points in the pole. Maybe you're a 5, maybe you're a 4, maybe you're a 0. See where you are. Write it down. Take a deep breath in, close your eyes. Super conscious. Do you see the end result? Do you see the end state, the desired end state? The opposite, the other end of the pole. Do you see it? Do you see all resistance to creating that desired end result? Super conscious, can you please tag and treat all resistance along this line and do a massive change history and everything else that's needed in the best and perfect way? Super conscious, do you see the original event, the polarizing point of view that got us stuck? Do you see that polarizing event that caused that belief? Can you please tag and treat that polarizing belief in the best and perfect way? And please pull that event from the timeline, do a massive change history, and put it back. Massive change history and everything else that's needed in the best and perfect way. Now can put that event back in the timeline with the new perspective, without polarization, with the power of observation. Thank you. Super conscious, can we please treat beliefs around the world, how the world works? Can we please treat the beliefs around how the world works, that there's absolutes in the world? Can we tag and treat that in the best and perfect way? So we can see the world from the new perspective, see the world from 2 points of view, that there's two polarity, there's opposites to everything. As long as that thing is the same thing, because everything has an opposite. and we can choose where we fit on that pole, that scale. Every note has an opposite. Superconscious, please download the understanding, the worldview from the Hermetic Principles. Download the wisdom from the universal laws. So we're unpacking the worldview and now downloading a universal view. Thank you. It is done. It is done. Superconscious, can we please treat the protector controller? The protector controller who has put things in place, has points of views, that has put things in place because something's happened in the past. Protector controller, can you let the protector controller know that there is polarity, and that where there was one thing, it can be moved to the other? We live in this polarity universe where there's hot, there's cold, where there's sharp, there's dull, where there's yin, there's yang, where there's light, there's dark. Can we please educate the protector controller on the universal points of view in the best and perfect way, and let the protector controller know that when he joins the creative personality, the universal consciousness, the superconscious, that he's going to feel less pain and more satisfaction, and that that this aspect of you belongs to the whole. You are part of the whole. 2 points of view, part of the whole. Everything is mind. And do a massive change history and everything else that's needed in the best and perfect way. Thank you. Superconscious, please treat family history, the ancestral line that has created a specific point of view, that it's this way. Please tag and treat the ancestral line. Any traumas in the ancestral line that has caused a distortion of the worldview, please tag and treat. In the best and perfect order. Thank you. Please treat the distortion of the universal laws in the best and perfect order. Thank you. Please tag and treat the manipulation of the universal laws, and go back to the knowing, your universal consciousness, your knowing, so you can see things from a new perspective. Superconscious, please treat any secondary intentions you have for that end desire and why you feel polarized in your current state of being. Please treat the secondary intention. Superconscious, please treat all energetic fields, all chakras. Please treat the third eye, front and back, so you can see all perspectives, see what is, and to treat the throat chakra, that you can see and feel the truth of each situation, not be distorted by the root chakra, which is ancestral and belief systems. Please treat the throat chakra, front and back, from manipulation, that you can see the truth. Superconscious, please tag and treat all remaining resistance on all timelines or dimensions. Please allow to see movement on each end of the poles, that you can move the scale, move by degrees. Superconscious, please ground all memories that we've touched on today, soul memories, universal memories, ancestral memories, past life memories, future memories. Please ground all quantum tandem memories, ego states. Please ground memories 1, 2, and 3, conscious, unconscious, superconscious, and please ground them into the benevolent matrix of this 5th dimension, Mother Gaia, earth plane that we are living on, that we can see things from the 5th dimensional point of view, that we're not interacting on the lower frequency, that we're interacting from a 5th dimensional point of view. superconscious, please treat the metaphor of the pendulum. The pendulum that swings back and forth, which is going from this is what I want, this is what I don't want. And as we move up the pendulum to the top, you see that that is the part that doesn't move. That is a superconscious, the observer, that we can move to that part. We don't have to be thrown around. We can move to the top of the observer to see both points of view, to choose where we want to fit on that two sides, two opposites. Please treat that metaphor in the best and perfect way. Please ground all memories, conscious, unconscious, superconscious. It's a physical plane. Thank you. It is done. It is done. Now, I want you now just to, I think we just need to sit and let that calibrate. Keep your eyes closed. Let whatever needs to be done, be done. When you feel a little bit of a shift, maybe you'll have a twitch, maybe you'll roll your shoulders, something, start to come back to the room, come back to your body, and feel into that state. And does there feel a shift from the unwanted state? Can you feel there is movement? Does it feel like there's clarity? Does it feel like there is choice? Does a polarization feel less? Go over and check chat on Facebook. No fear. Beautiful, beautiful. Moving into courage, moving into love, and seeing it from that place. That's the place you can make the decisions. That's the place you can shift from. And you can practice that with so many aspects of your life where you feel polarized, especially points of view by our external environment, our news, our friends, our family, that we can see different points of view, that we can, it'll help with relationships. It'll help with making decisions because you move closer to that desired state. So I hope you enjoyed today's session. From my heart to yours, sending you so much love, holding space for all that is different, holding space for new points of view, to becoming the new version of you, to be able to see things from a new perspective. And we talk about that all the time. And if you do want to revisit the other universal laws, you can look at the Kabbalion. So if you have any questions about today's session, feel free to contact me. You can send me a DM. I'm also looking at the Turning the Page program, which is going to be a small group of 8 people. That is a program that I'm going to be doing. Starts at the beginning of April, 6th of April, which is the full moon. On that time, it's going to be the guide to starting over, and it's going to be limited to a group of 8 people who are ready to make that shift, where we work together to create action steps, a roadmap to starting over. Maybe it's a new project that you want a bit of clarity on. Maybe it's a whole life change that you want some more support on. So if something you're interested in, let me know. I'll send you information on it. If there's someone you think that will benefit from it, I will be doing an information session on my my Wednesday, which is tomorrow, your Tuesday. No, yeah, I'll put that I'll put that in Creator Sphere in case anyone wants to attend, but I'm also doing some more. I'll do another Turning the Page information next week as well. So I hope you enjoyed today's session on polarity. It is the key to your success. And as I said, the source of your resistance. Okay, much love to you all. Have a great week. Bye.